Hey, this is Patrick Flutie, and we're here with Jerry Galbraith, here with the Friends Ministry. And we're just going to ask a series of questions just to get a more basic information on the homeless situation here in Columbus. So our first question would be, why did you get involved in the homeless ministry?
Well, Patrick, about 20 years ago, I was sort of at a low point in my life when I was going through a lot of personal issues, and I knew the director of Faith Mission, which is the big homeless shelter here in town, and I asked him if I could help in the evening times, and so I went down and he had me registering people that were coming in looking for beds, and from there I started doing a Bible study, and from there I started to build relationships with many of the homeless men and women who were around at that particular time. A lot of them are still around. Homelessness is a condition, a state of mind. It has a lot of different factors to it. Some of it has to do with mental health. Some of it has to do with educational skills. Some of it has to do with addictions. Some of it has to do with just not having any confidence to be able to hold a job. So that in my dealings with these men, I became very curious about who they were, their backgrounds, how they came to this particular point in their life, and from there I began to just become friends with them. And so that really started the Friends Ministry, and that's how the Friends Ministry came into effect, and that's sort of where we are now at this particular time.
So since it started, I know that you guys have grown because you guys used to meet at Faith Mission and then now you meet here.
Yes.
How has that journey taken place? What has kind of gotten you to this point?
Well, basically through the building of relationships. As we grew, more and more people would hear about us or would be curious. They'd come in and sort of participate in the Bible studies. Later on, we moved over to the Salvation Army building on Fulton at that time and used their basement. And then from there, we used the Bellows Avenue Church of the Nazarene over on here on the west side. And then from there, we moved here. Each time we sort of outgrew where we were, and we moved to this particular place. We're an all-volunteer organization. There's no staff, there's no overhead, there's no offices, and so that we use a space that is donated to us, or we were given permission to use it, where we have a dinner, we have a fellowship, we'll have some music. We use a method of sort of building community by just sharing and listening and talking with the people that are coming down here so that they can begin to build trust. We can begin to see how we can help them more mentally than physically. We don't provide a lot of material items. We're not a social service organization, so that we don't do anything that like provide them apartments or things like that.
Since you're more of a ministry, your main goal is the mental health of the person, but also the spiritual health of the person.
Right.
Yes. Give us a little bit more on that.
Yes. Well, from a spiritual standpoint, is that the poor have a very unique position in God's kingdom, and God loves the poor. Mm-hmm. And actually, when we begin to understand who the poor are, and how He wants us to relate to them, we suddenly find ourselves in a whole different environment than where we are if we're in our church. And so that it makes the person who is coming down to help much more vulnerable, much more sensitive to what God is doing. It also helps the person become more, it gives the person the ability to love unconditionally. So many times in our own settings, we love somebody or we do something for somebody because we expect something in return.
Yes.
In this particular setting, there's not much you can get in return. So whatever you give, you sort of have to give unconditionally.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone that you could say by name that has kind of, as a homeless person, helped you out in your life, has changed your perspectives on life, just being around him?
Yes. There are several of them. Some of them are here tonight. say John Wharton, who is one of them that I like to think of, who really is a man that God loves and who loves the Lord, but he has struggled with alcoholism and crack addiction for probably 20 years of his life. He didn't use it until he was maybe 20, 25. Then he started using it until he was probably 45 or 50. He's just been free of it, but it took him that long to sort of get all those sort of demons out of his system and to get back. And I think it points out to me the fact that that God is still with us even in the midst of our struggles.
How would you say the church has played a vital role in homeless ministry? Because you don't see a lot of just government facilities or just like people who aren't connected to the church in like the homeless ministry setting. So how has the church kind of taken a major role in this area?
Well, frankly, I think the church struggles with this. I mean, they don't quite know what to do with the poor themselves. And so many of these individuals have relationship problems, and they're very difficult to become integrated within a typical church. The pastor, who is probably overworked and has many more problems, he doesn't really want to deal with them, so he really doesn't know how to deal with them. And so that in our particular case, we sort of step in, begin to work with these people from a spiritual standpoint, begin to sort of get their roots reestablished, let them know that God still loves them, and at the same time begin to sort of make sure that they are holding themselves accountable for their actions. One of the differences between what we do and I think so many of the social services company or agencies do is that they will provide the material means and even the help, but it leaves the person dependent. And we're trying to not worry so much about the material part of it, because there's plenty of things out there for them to receive. We want them to become independent so that they can support themselves, not have to depend upon the government or anybody else, because once they become dependent, then they get into this entitlement mentality, which begins to really just erode their self-confidence and their dignity and everything else.
And one last question: do you guys have any needs here as a ministry that you need? Do you need more volunteers?
But we always like to have people participate, because that actually is part of our ministry. We want to open up volunteer opportunities for people coming out of the churches, the secular world, no matter where they are. If they have an idea or some curiosity about this, we want them to come down here. We'll introduce them to what we do and sort of see if it fits their lifestyle.
Okay. Well, nice talking with you, Jerry Galbraith.
Thank you, Patrick.
Have a good day.